Hello, welcome to Shaka Extra Time, a show that comes to you every week. I am Paul Indiho, and today on Shaka Extra Time, we take a look back at the killing of George Floyd that shook the whole world. And joining me to discuss this interesting topic is my colleague Shaka Sali, aka the Kabali Kid. Hello, Ndugu Shaka.
Hello, Ndugu Paul.
How are you?
I have to say that I remain simple, easy, and as some of my fans have insisted, an awesome son of Mother Africa.
Let's take a look at perhaps one of the most significant events that has happened: the conviction of Derek Chauvin, a guy who killed George Floyd. A lot of people are saying that this is perhaps something that could lead to reforms or the beginning of police reforms in the United States. Of course, we've had several cases where police acts in a way that is not professional, and they get away with murder because they carry themselves around as, they can do whatever they want and get away with it. But for the first time, at least in a very long time, we had a conviction of a police officer, Derek Chauvin, who killed George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's start there.
Yes, to be very honest with you, Ndugu Paul, this is something very, very rare. In fact, if I recall correctly, it's probably the first time that a white police officer has actually been found guilty and he's going to pay for the crimes that he committed. If you asked me really about my reaction, first of all, I have to be honest with you that I failed to react as a journalist and succeeded to react as a black man. I looked at the verdict. I looked at the judge talking about guilty, guilty, guilty. I couldn't believe that I had heard guilty 3 times, meaning that in fact, Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all the 3 charges. You have to give credit, Ndugu, to the Attorney General and his team of very, very competent and diverse prosecutors. You also have to give perhaps even a much larger credit to a teenage black lady by the name Danielle Fraser, the lady that produced the video that nobody could run away from. That lady, with that kind of video, it changed everything in everybody's mind, really, for the most part, to the extent that even the police, the blue wall of silence, which is associated with police, meaning that police officers normally side with one of their own. For the first time in American police history, that blue wall of silence collapsed. And it collapsed largely because of the video that was produced by the young lady, Danielle Fraser. You can't believe that for the most part, all the police officer colleagues who testified against one of their own. They testified in favor of the prosecutors. And we are talking about, for example, the supervisors of Derek Chauvin, including the police chief to boot. And so you have the kind of evidence, Ndugu, that would be characterized as incontrovertible, not liable to falter. And it was a case, of course, as you know, that was broadcast live to the entire world. So you can say, yes, for the first time, one could say that you were looking at a situation where some have suggested that justice was done, even though, if you look at all the facts, justice was not done. What was done was accountability. And accountability is only a first step towards justice, because justice means restoration. And restoration would mean that we would, in fact, have got an opportunity to live again with George Floyd. But George Floyd is dead. And so it is not justice, but accountability. And accountability itself, by the way, is very, very significant, because at least it means that it is the first step, and a positive step at that, in the right direction. In other words, what we are looking at really is like you are actually seeing for the first time a light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel.
Going back to the point you made earlier, you said that as a journalist you could not react, but as a black person, you looked at it from the lenses of a black person living in America. Uh, Let me ask you this. Do you think if the circumstances were different, if let's say perhaps President Trump was still in the Oval Office, do you think would have gotten the same outcome here?
I have no doubt that that would have happened because, mind you, it is the same judiciary system that disagreed with the former US President, Donald J. Trump, when he talked about the big steal of the elections. They turned him down. The United States judicial system has the distinction of operating independently. And I think in this particular case, they would have risen to the occasion. Because at the end of the day, the law should be guided by facts, by evidence. And as I said, when it came to evidence here, Ndugu Paul, you had what would be characterized as incontrovertible evidence, meaning not liable to falter. That is the reason, by the way, why what is characterized as the blue wall of silence collapsed.
How about people who said that accountability on the part of George Floyd uh, is great, but not significant, because we've seen so many of these cases. I've even participated in an investigation where a Ugandan was killed by police after the sister called 911 for help. They came within 2 seconds of arriving at the scene. They shot him because he was a black man. And on many occasions, we've seen so many people get killed and police gets away with murder.
Yes, I understand where you're coming from, Lugupor, and please do not get me wrong. I did not say, for example, that what we saw in the verdict that favors George Floyd was by any measure a sort of panacea. It was not. We still have a very, very long way to go, but we are on the right track. You could look at that case and look at that verdict as winning a battle. But what is really needed is winning the war. And that's why I argued that what happened in Minneapolis was not justice, because justice means restoration. George Floyd is 6 feet deep. But you cannot deny that what happened that day is accountability. And that accountability is a first significant step in the direction of justice. I think that we have really come a long way because, mind you, most people who look like you and me had almost given up, did not expect to see this happening. But you know, the evidence was simply too much to ignore. That's the good thing about the judiciary systems, especially if they operate in a political environment that allows them to be independent, because they are guided by facts and evidence and data, not politics, not innuendo, but facts and evidence to boot.
Why are police unions around the United States concerned or resistant to change and jealously guard their turf?
Because historically, there has been a judicial system that dispenses two types of justices, one for the dominant culture and the other for the political minorities, in this particular case, especially blacks. But I think that what we are now looking at is a window, is a small window of opportunity for coming up with some fundamental reforms of the judicial system. And that will probably happen, especially because it is supported by the president, Joe Biden. It is also supported by the ruling Democratic Party. And there are also some evidence that there seems to be some apparent move in the Republican Party. So I think at the end of the day, given that nothing endures except change, all that society has to do is prepare for the changes that must necessarily occur, or to manage the changes that must necessarily occur. Because at the end of the day, the last time I checked, the only thing that you could claim is constant is change. And I think, as an optimist, I can again see this as evidence to a light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel.
Shaka, you alluded to the fact that the administration seems to be taking note of the changing demographics, and they see the movement growing that wants police reform. You talked about even how some Republicans are trying to see if they can come up with something that can rally their base towards police reform. But how about the fact that there are over 1,800 police jurisdictions that take direction from the state governments because of the federal constitutional law. It says that federal government cannot be involved in policing. Policing is literally left out for the states to do that part. So it doesn't matter what the Biden administration does or anybody comes up, but these laws really, it's just on the books, but it can't make significant change because at the end of the day, it's the states that matter.
I'm afraid that is not entirely true, because this country, whether you are a state, whether you are a city, whether you are a county, you basically take a cue from what is called the United States Constitution. At the end of the day, the federal government is the single most important institution. It can really make a lot of difference. That is why, for example, there is a debate of making sure that some of these changes which are being suggested should not simply come through a reflection of the president's executive order, but rather go through the two houses, go through the House of Representatives and the Senate, so that the changes could be codified into law. And that could happen. You know, there is a lot of resistance, of course, and that should be expected, because there is a certain understanding, or at least a perception, and that perception in many ways is a sort of reality, that the dominant culture has enjoyed incredible privileges, but has enjoyed incredible privileges at the expense of political minorities. Now, these political minorities, as you suggested earlier, mind you, because of the apparent changing demographics, in tandem with the social media, are about to be in charge of this country. You can see the contribution, as a matter of fact, to the Derek Chauvin guilty verdict. It was actually a reflection of the changing demographics. Because, mind you, I told you that Daniel Fraser is a teenage young lady. You remember, even during the testimony, they could not show her pictures because she's under 18, underage. We were only able to listen to her voice. But look at the tool that she was able to use and bring about the sort of evidence that ended up being incontrovertible, not liable to falter. Guess what? It was a gift reflecting the importance and the significance of the social media, in tandem, of course, with the operator, who is a reflection of the changing demographics.
Going back to Danielle Fraser, there are people who have argued that she should get the Pulitzer Prize for journalism, or the most coveted prize in journalism. And there are people who have also said that she should get the highest medal of bestowed upon an individual here, the Medal of Freedom here from the U.S. president. How do you respond to that?
Ndugu Paul, I couldn't agree with your suggestion more. As a matter of fact, I was thinking that she should be nominated as a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I think she would make a formidable candidate. The Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize for 2021. That is what an incredible contribution she has made, not only to the important issues of justice and human rights, but she has provided a service not only to the United States of America, helping to restore the United States of America's dignity, but she has also, in a sense, made a great human contribution to the world. She deserves any important award that is associated with helping to bring about peace and justice in the world.
As I was doing research for this show, I came across one of your friends here who has appeared on Straight Talk several times, David Onsario Monda, a Kenyan professor at the City University of New York and an analyst. He argues in one of his columns that one of the reasons police is scared of police reform or police unions are concerned is that police departments will be sued targeting well-meaning officers. There is that school of thought there that thinks that if there is genuine police reform, all these police departments will be targeted by people, and as a result, you have less people wanting to join our police forces.
I don't think people are against having police, so long as the police could actually do their duty as per the United States Constitution. Mind you, the police is not only employed to arrest people. Even when it arrests somebody, it is also at the same time expected to take care of that particular individual. Because the police, its fundamental role is to protect the lives and property of society. So at the end of the day, we are really talking about a behavior that under no circumstances should be tolerated, especially by such a noble institution as the police.
Across the country, there are a lot of people who said that the conviction of a white Minneapolis police officer who had his knee on George Floyd for 9.5 minutes, if anything, has just shed light on the problem. But unfortunately, it doesn't address the issues that a lot of people face in this country. Would you agree?
Yes, I do agree indeed. The issues that face especially the political minorities, and specifically black and brown people, are not limited to police brutality. They are not limited to social political injustice. They are also, for example, found in situations where black people are treated differently when it comes to jobs. Black and brown people are treated differently when it comes to jobs. Black and brown people are treated differently when it comes to health care. Black and brown people are also treated differently when it comes, for example, to schools and going to schools and institutions to have an education. What is needed is not simply having unfettered access to school or tertiary institutions or college, but it is, in fact, in addition to getting unfettered access, it is very, very imperative that black and brown people get the sort of equal quality education like their white counterparts. I think we have a long way to go, because it is as if, in fact, what we really need is comprehensive social, political, cultural changes in the manner in which authorities in the United States deal with their political minorities. And these political minorities, by the way, in less than 2 decades, is expected to become the political majority. And if it becomes the political majority, you can be sure that it is going to be calling shots.
How about historically, when you look at policing in America, there are a lot of people who have argued that historically, police, going back to the days when police was formed, really, it was to do exactly what they are doing today. Nothing in the law has changed, even though we talk about reforms. Police is still acting like as if, they're there to stop us black folk from going about our business. Because when you look at at it from a historical context, there is that argument there where police in some states still think that they're above the law. I'm sure you and I have been in situations where we've had police stop us and we freak out because we don't know what could happen. You know?
You are right. Police, of course, has historically and traditionally behaved like a police force. A police force in the employment of protecting the interests of the dominant culture, a code for the white community and the powerful, and certainly not being employed for protecting the rights and interests of the political minorities, talking about black and brown people. And it does that precisely because it operates under the banner of a police force, meaning it can actually use force to compel people to do certain things. What is really needed is a reformed police that could, in fact, be characterized as a police service, a police as an institution that serves the people, regardless of which social, economic, political, cultural background they come from. It should serve the interests of people as per the United States Constitution, which says that all people basically are born equal.
Shaka, I wanted maybe to go back to a point I made earlier, and you articulated yourself on it. Do you think that it's possible to really have police reform without addressing the fundamental issues of race in America?
Yes, you can, but I said you cannot successfully reform the issues surrounding the police in isolation of the other larger and broader social, political, and cultural ills. I said earlier that what you really need is a fundamental reform in the entire system. You need reforms that affect the social, economic, political, cultural lives of the entire system, and that those reforms should be able to function, especially given that all they really need to do is to reflect not only the spirit, but also the letter of this incredible document known as the United States Constitution. It provides all the tools that will bring about social, economic, political, and cultural justice for all, regardless of which racial community the group comes from. Because at the end of the day, this is a country which is more or less like the first social political experiment on this planet Earth that is not built on identity, that is not built on ethnicity, but that in fact it is built on an idea of equitable representation.
Well, Shaka, we'll end it there. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome, Dugu.